This is TV10 and 55 Focus, a program dealing with issues affecting everyone on Long Island and the tri-state area. Now your host, Richard Rose.
Hi, I'm Richard Rose, and welcome to Focus. Today we're going to talk about something that's called toxic drinking, binge drinking on campus. It's cost a lot of lives in the last decades, and we want to talk about what's being done on campuses right here on Long Island in order to prevent tragedies like that. And so joining us are our guests, Dr. Shirley Strum Kenny. She's the outgoing president of Stony Brook University, and also Jenny Hwang, who is an associate dean for outreach and is the administrator of the Red Watch Band program. Is that correct, Jenny?
That is.
Tell us, what is the Red Watch Band program? We might have some video we can show at some point showing students being trained. Tell us what it is.
Well, I think the most important component of it is that it is really a program to prevent death, and particularly death from alcohol overdose, or what we're terming toxic drinking. It tackles really three areas related to alcohol use. One is this myth that binge drinking is just partying, which unfortunately many of our adolescents and young adults tend to think.
And we see people being trained here. These are Stony Brook students we're seeing trained here?
Yes, yes.
How many have been trained so far?
About 115 so far, and that's just since March 15th.
So people are really interested in this program. You've gotten a good response from students, I would
It's
think.
been absolutely amazing. With very little marketing on campus, we were able to get quite a few students volunteering, engaged, wanting their friends to participate in the training, and it's just been a great.
Well, again, explain the problem. You touched on it there when you said toxic drinking. People look forward to the party atmosphere. I have two children who are getting ready to go to college, and I already hear them talking about party on. And who hasn't heard this and been exposed to it? All of us. I mean, America's a country where you're free, and part of being free is you can have a party, you can party on. And we have students arriving every day at campuses. This is one of the things they're looking forward to, but it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? And a potentially deadly one.
Yes, it is. I mean, our society inherently has a fairly ambivalent relationship with alcohol. You see it at weddings, you see it at funerals, and it's hard for people to understand the way that alcohol is a drug, and taken in excessive amounts can lead to a body completely shutting down and to death.
Yeah, I don't think that this has even really sunk in with people. They think you probably have to drink like 6 bottles of vodka, 800 beers. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but or 30 beers. You know, this is what people think they'd have to do before they could die from drinking.
That's right. That's right. And the thing is, it varies from person to person. There are lots of factors that play into it, and there's no way to be able to just look at someone and to say, oh yes, that person is one drink away from looking at alcohol overdose. There's too much of a gray area involved, so a training like this becomes very important.
Well, Dr. Kenny, let's bring you into this. Of course, we mentioned that you're outgoing, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, because we also want to discuss the fact of your long tenure, successful tenure at Stony Brook University has now come to an end. But while you're still there, you approved having this program, and I would be interested in why that is. And I know there was also a personal reason for the faculty of the campus as well, if you could explain that.
Surely, there was definitely a personal reason in that one of our faculty members lost her son, who was a freshman at another institution, to toxic drinking. His buddies were egging him on to drink, and when he had in fact drunk too much too fast, they put him to bed to make sure that he was, you know, okay. Well, that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, there's a lot of myths to what you should or should not do, and maybe you could give us a few examples.
That's right. Well, the first place is you've got to, if somebody has overdrunk, is in danger of dying, i.e. has passed out, you've got to call 911. That's the most important thing. Get that person to a hospital immediately. Now, kids are afraid to do that. They're afraid they'll get their friend in trouble. They're afraid they'll get in trouble. And so they don't call. They sort of try to take care of the friend.
Sleep it off.
Yeah, they're exactly right. And, of course, the alcohol keeps getting more excessive in their body as they lie there. The poisoning continues and continues. And in the case of this student, the next morning he was dead.
And these are inexperienced people at drinking even. They've not, in most cases, had a lot of experience with drinking and its effects. And so there's a recklessness that goes with it as well. Is that all right, Jenny?
Well, there's a recklessness. It's not just recklessness, though. There's an inherent characteristic of alcohol that as you consume it, your judgment goes down, your impulsivity goes up. So the tools that students absolutely need to be able to use become further and further away from them the more they drink. So I think that's a big challenge to keep in mind.
The red watch band, does that imply that there is some sort of red band that people wear to show that they are part of this?
Yes, there is a red watch that all students who go through the training receive, and many students like to wear it. Students post it on their bulletin board as a way to show what it means to them and the value of looking out for someone else. And I think that's a really key point, because people often at first will say to us, oh, so if I join the Red Watch Band, you're asking me to not drink. And again, that's why I said this program is really about preventing death. It's asking students to make a choice, to take a stand and save someone's life, even of someone they may not know, because that's the right thing to do. And so that's really where we're moving towards in terms of culture change.
The watch band is a pun because they are a band of students who voluntarily watch after those who may be in very serious trouble. The idea is, you know, your friend's about to die. Do you care enough to do what you've got to do to save that friend?
Well, and it's identifiable for the other students. If there were something happening, they would know who to turn
exactly.
to. Because there could be this person
That's
right down in the hall in the dormitory that maybe not even
That's
aware
right.
of the party, but could come to the rescue.
Yeah. Or is at the party, but has the
Could
red
be
watch
at the party,
band.
right. And what kind of professional skill, I mean, you're teaching them skills that professionals use, are you not?
All students are certified in CPR. The big skill that they learn is overcoming that initial obstacle there is to making the call. It is amazing to see the personal, internal conflicts that students have around picking up the phone. They're afraid to get their friend in trouble. They're afraid that they're making it...
Does it get them in trouble?
Well, at Stony Brook, it doesn't. It is an educational, it's treated as an educational moment. For the person who's making the call, we're not out to police the person making the call. If someone ends up in the hospital as a result of an alcohol overdose, we absolutely want to have a conversation with them, and one of our alcohol and other drug specialists will, because there's plenty of research out there that shows that when someone makes a visit to the emergency department, if they have a follow-up interview to review what happened that they ended up in that place, the chances of a repeat event like that go down significantly.
How many people die from this each year?
Also, New York and some other states. New York has just passed a law that says you will not get in trouble if you call. And, you know, because kids are afraid if they're underage and call, they're going to get in trouble. So there is a new law to protect them.
Yeah, so there's some incentive on the legal side to understand this phenomenon. And it's not just a phenomenon. There are a lot of people dying. How many people are hospitalized and killed each year?
Oh, well, if you look at the number of students 18 to 24 who die, it is on average a little over 1,800 now, the new research study
It's 150 people a month.
Yes.
That's 5 people a day.
That's right.
That's phenomenal. I wasn't aware it would be that much. And how many people go to the hospital? Thousands?
It's over 30,000
Over 30,000. That's a lot. All right, so you see why we're talking about this. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk with a Stony Brook faculty member who was touched by this tragedy and which led to this program being initiated at Stony Brook when we return right here on Focus. Hey, welcome back to Focus. I'm Richard Rose here with our guests, and joining us right now, as you can see, is Suzanne Fields. Suzanne is a faculty member at Stony Brook University teaching geriatrics, right?
Yes.
But for the purpose of this show, Suzanne has very bravely agreed to come on and talk about what you went through, was it just last year?
Yes.
With your son, Matthew. We were talking about the Red Watch Band program that is being taught to students at Stony Brook University to deal with binge drinking. And unfortunately, this tragedy touched your own family.
Yes.
Tell us about what happened.
About a year ago, my husband and I received a call that there was a tragedy on campus, that he was dead.
Your son?
My son,
How
19
old?
years old. 19 years old. He was a freshman doing very well academically. We had no reason to believe there was any problem. He was due to come home 3 days later. But apparently the night he died, he attended a drinking party in which upperclassmen engaged him in a drinking contest. And
which it's not even legal for him to do at that age, but
no.
This is what happens
right.
when kids go to college.
Well, it's also not legal for people to give underage students alcohol.
Absolutely.
And after he passed out, the students kind of, I think, made a joke of it. And we later learned, took Sharpie pens and drew on his face, and did some other things that we found out about. But they put him to bed. And other friends checked on him through the night. I think the other friends were concerned, but apparently didn't realize that letting a student sleep it off was dangerous. And the following morning, when the students went into his room to check on him, he was dead. And they tried resuscitating him to no avail. So my husband and I had to fly back and unpack, pack up his things and plan a burial for a 19-year-old kid who, otherwise was healthy.
It's just unspeakable.
It is. So at the time, or shortly thereafter, President Kenny and her husband, whom I know, wrote me the most beautiful letter saying that if there was anything that they could do to help me and my family through this ordeal, that they were there for us. And I wrote back that although I didn't feel up to it at the time, that I would like to do something so that my son's death was not in vain, and that we could prevent deaths like this from happening on our own campus, where I've been a faculty member for a long time and I know a lot of the students. At Matthew's funeral, I was amazed at how many parents said to me, "But for the grace of God, this could have been my child," which made me realize that this is a larger problem than I ever realized. My son was not the type of kid that you would think would die in this way. I mean, he was a very fine student, he was a musician, he was a debater, he wasn't the type of kid that in my own mind I thought would ever do anything like this. He had a lot of common sense, and he was an extremely kind-hearted young man.
Peer pressure, though,
but
makes people do things that they would never do.
I think it was peer pressure. I don't think parents are aware of the degree of peer pressure that exists out there. The other thing that struck me was in talking to friends of his from his college and also, some other students, no one seemed to be aware of what to do if a student passed out. And so the doctor and me wanted to work on a program that would educate students to really kind of change the campus culture such that this would not be a laughing matter or a joke or a rite of passage, but where students would look out for one another and cut a student who is drinking too much off.
Well, because, this was an example where one can expect that, if there had been a better reaction, maybe his life could have been saved.
Absolutely.
Which is the hardest part, right?
Exactly. That it wasn't like I was dealing with, a child who was chronically ill where the death was expected. This came out of the blue. And the students who knew my son gave me a kind of a scrapbook of their memories of him. And many students wrote about how kind he was and how he was the type of kid who would walk young women home at night, whether it be from the party or from the library, to make sure they were safe. On Mother's Day of this year, a friend of his from high school sent me an email talking about how kind he was to her when she was going through a rough time in high school. And she was fine now and wanted to repay the kindness by starting a Red Watch Band chapter on her campus.
So it's made a difference, this program. It's spreading to other colleges.
I think it is. I think it struck a chord. And what I would like to see happen is not just that students are educated on what to do if they see a friend in trouble, as important as that is, but also change the mindset of how students treat one another. Because I think this would be how I'd want my son remembered, as someone who was very kind, and that students should look out for one another. I don't think it's the right thing to do to get a friend so drunk that they pass out or vomit or seize. Rather, they should cut friends off, give friends water, divert their attention. And you mentioned a student who actually finished the Red Watch Band program and did that. She diverted friends who were going to go to a party, and they did something else that night that didn't involve alcohol. So I'd like to see a change in college culture that changes the, it's a rite of passage for students, regardless of their age, that, you hear about 21-year-olds having 21 shots on their 21st birthday. This is lethal. They could die from that, even if they're overage. To have students aware of the dangers of excessive alcohol, but also to watch out for their friends so that it's not encouraged or made a laughing matter.
I think you said everything that this program is trying to do, and of course everyone is very impressed by your courage to come out and talk about something very personal and difficult that I'm sure you deal with every day. And we're going to take a break here and talk some more with Suzanne Fields and our guest, Dr. Shirley Strum Kenny and Jenny Hwang, talking about this problem that is killing students every year on campus, and it's entirely preventable. When we return right here on Focus. And we're back talking about this problem of binge drinking, toxic drinking. It happens on campuses. Thousands of students killed every year from having 21 shots on their 21st birthday. Many of them not even 21. It's not even legal to be given this alcohol, but we all know what goes on. And we just heard Suzanne Fields give her a very touching story about what happened to her son Matthew. Unfortunately, lost his life this way. And it's cruel when you think back about the kind of night that a person goes through. And yet this is part of what people see as college life. You get you get razzed and you get put through, you get hazed, and these are phenomena we've been dealing with ever since they ever put educational institutions together in this country. Do you feel like when people hear Suzanne Fields' story, though, that it makes a difference, Dr. Kenny?
I absolutely feel it makes a difference. And one of the things we're trying to do, first of all, we're trying to save lives. Secondly, we are trying to change their perceptions so that they know that binge drinking is not cool. It's not the thing to do. The term we use is toxic drinking, and that's what it is.
Well, do you feel like this program has helped memorialize Matthew?
Absolutely. Well, I think, the loss was so terrible, but if, in fact, we can prevent other students from dying, and I think that has already happened through this program.
Tell us about this expansion nationwide. Are other schools picking up this program?
That's right. Other schools are picking up. We are going to be training people from other schools. Jenny has planned some schedules. We have heard from around the country places that want to get into this and are really feeling compelled by the possibilities of this program. So it is spreading. I think the Red Watch Band will definitely be a national movement.
Jenny?
Yeah, and I mean, I just really want to emphasize that the degree to which this program will memorialize Matthew, not just Matthew, but parents who have reached out to the program after they heard about the program, sharing very similar stories, children of different genders, over 21, under 21, it cuts across every race, class, age, kinds of categories that you can think of. That what this memorializes is the goodness that is in many of these young people who are lost. And how many times I've heard from parents say, yes, my son or daughter died this way, but he or she was so much more than this. Please don't think that he or she was just this. And so this program is really about extending the goodness and the compassion and the contributions that many of these young adults could have made had they had a chance to see another day.
I would imagine Suzanne Fields, we're talking about your son, Matthew, who died last year from this toxic drinking, egged on by classmates, and then left to die, really. Although no one would ever sign up for that. They're completely drunk. You don't have rational actions, but people are also ignorant of the problem, and that's what you're dealing with. But have you heard from other parents who've been through this? Have you been able to talk with others? Because, you know, this is the parents' worst nightmare. And then there's this feeling that they were away from home and you weren't there.
I know.
And you could have saved them. That's a parent's instinct. That's got to be the hardest part, I would think.
Yes. And coming to terms that, you know, there wasn't anything I could have done. You know, this wasn't something that my son learned at home. I think it's the atmosphere on, you know, certain campuses where, you know, then the peer pressure involved with it also. You know, articles in the student newspaper or online resources, kind of glorifying binge drinking, media. You talked about songs on the radio. You know, I think as, and I've said this, I think maybe one of the next steps is to think about getting a group together, people from different disciplines, from academia, from law enforcement, from the medical community, the psychology community, to kind of put forth best practices, what works, what doesn't work, you know, how can we solve this problem together so that other lives aren't lost. I haven't talked to parents who have lost children. You have, Jenny.
You know, it's increasingly a problem for young women. The number of young women has grown, Jenny probably knows the numbers, but dramatically.
Well, you know, I think it's something we knew was a problem, and we're so sorry for what your family went through, Suzanne, and everybody's very impressed at the fact that you have come to grips with this, and you're able to tell a story and reach out to parents over what they have to live with now, because life moves on for you. And I think it really underscores the depth of the problem when we put out numbers like 1,800 people killed every year, what you live with every day, and the fact that every parent who sends their kids off to school is so worried about this. We have to leave it there. We've run out of time. We want to thank you for joining us, Suzanne Fields, Jenny Hwang, and Dr. Shirley Strum Kenny. I want to give you a chance to talk about your future. But congratulations on your many years at Stony Brook, and we wish you much success in the future as you move on to new endeavors. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for being there. I'm Richard Rose. Be sure to join us next week for yet another edition of Focus.